This next series, the final series of the day, is going to decide who makes it to Sunday from Europe. We're about to find that out and get this one underway. To break down all the action, we got Zico, Super Tees, and Van Ruki. Zico, what do you think happens here?
Villet is going to come in from the bench, and I think Change My Mind are going to be taking this one, potentially 3-2. I think it's going to be a pretty close matchup. Both teams are fairly close in terms of skill. I would say compositionally, though, Change My Mind with their Shadow Priest Mage Druid are going to have the edge.
Okay, so you think that they're going to have that edge with the Shadow Priest potentially, Sid? How do you feel about that?
The edge of insanity.
That's not what they run anymore.
I know, but come on, those.
Don't ruin that one. We're gonna point Zico. Super Tees, what do you think there?
I still think the blind pick. I actually think Nerd Rage should be playing as Windwalker. I think if they can play the Windwalker Death Knight Mistweaver, that they can beat both compositions that Change My Mind have at their disposal. So it's really just a question of whether or not they're second guessing Nerd Rage's capability after the performance in only one game against Wildcard Gaming. I feel like that might be a bit unfair to totally count him out on the Windwalker after just one chance, because that composition is so solid overall and well-rounded and been difficult in the past for Change My Mind to deal with. So I would like to see them blind pick that.
Now, we keep talking about how close this can be. Off broadcast last week, Change My Mind was able to win 3-2 in this matchup. So how important do you think results like that are going to be today?
Well, I think it's going to be really important for Change My Mind if they want to secure their third place spot in terms of points right now. They have to win this matchup, but like you kind of said, it was a 3-2 last week, and I think it's likely it did come down to the blind pick, as a lot of the Pumper series really do. They seem to have good compositions available, but their compositions definitely have weaknesses, so teams can exploit that, but if they can win in the blind pick, sort of mind game their opponent, they typically come out ahead. And we saw in the last series against ABC, even though they were behind, they just play that TSG setup, the Death Knight Warrior, Mistweaver Monk so well. They can take advantages of misplays on the enemy team. So even if Change My Mind comes out with a counter comp, essentially, I still think the Pumpers have a good shot of potentially sneaking away with a win.
I want to see Fnobbers on the Resto Druid here. I think that would be really, really good for them.
Okay.
Instead of the Pumpers.
This has been asked for by every single person on the desk in quite a few of the matchups here. That may be that little extra curveball that they do need. 82% of you thinking that the Pumpers can take it here. We're not going to see Knobbers. We are going to see Drainer. This is a composition that we've seen them play to success a bunch of times. The weakness obviously there, and that's why Valet going to be teching in. Will Change My Mind be able to take the ever so important blind pick?
Big bad boy Shadow Priest Valet steps into the blind pick, and this is what I think Change My Mind we're hoping for. If the Pumpers had blind locked their balance through a Death Knight, I would say that they could potentially take Change My Mind on. Pumpers once again pinned at a pillar facing a Frost Mage. They were able to overcome ABC, and now they have to overcome Change My Mind with a similar strategy. So will Drainer be able to find those moments to get aggressive and net a kill for his team, or will he be dismantled by the crowd control of Change My Mind? Because Change My Mind throughout the entire day has had perfect crowd control. So if a team was going to shut down a Mistweaver, it's going to be them.
Yeah, I think Valet is a relatively vulnerable target if he overextends and gets caught into a grip, a death grip, into Asphyxiate Stun or Stormbolt, and the Pumpers can ride that momentum. I think they can shred through a lot of the defensives he has available. So far, Minpoike getting swapped too as he moves in. Triple Intimidating Shout coming in from Nerd Rage, looking to generate huge pressure for his team. Barkskin traded out by Minpoike. Vampiric Embrace from Valet with a silence on a Drainer though. Nerd Rage is the one that's under the most pressure. Icy Beans gets traded out by Fried Kitty as early on Change My Mind looking to take a quick win.
Are they going to get a die by the sword or even maybe a kill here? Drainer manages to sneak in Life Cocoon right before getting Psychic Screamed. War Banner denies any incoming crowd control afterwards, and Nerd Rage will recover, but that was a lot of their defense traded. Now, though, it's their turn to attack. Way of the Crane activated, denied. Great polymorph timing by Fried Kitty, now developing more momentum potentially for the team. Mind Freeze breaks the chain. Drainer gets to stay on target. Nope, rolls away, decides, all right, it's enough time out in midfield, and this is what they've had to do against these Wizard Cleaves, is how much further can they chase? Valet is baiting them. This is not a good position for Nerd Rage. Drainer is silenced. Nerd Rage leaps out, but it might be too late. Die by the sword forced, even with Nerd Rage already positioned at the pillar, potentially still going down. If Fried Kitty can get a polymorph, Fried Kitty gets gripped back out of line of sight. Nerd Rage still struggling to recover. Drainer's very afraid of a blink counter spell at this moment of time. That's why he's not even opening up his School of Magic for Soothing Mist, just relying on his Jade statue to heal while they're taking 0 damage behind the pillar. Then mounting up an assault towards Valet, leg sweep, but Cervantes is on Fried Kitty. This is another strategy we've seen in the past from the Pumpers, where they'll send one melee, so in this case Cervantes after one caster, which is Fried Kitty, and they'll one-on-one and disrupt and deal damage. Then Nerd Rage will go after the other caster, Valet, and disrupt his damage and get better uptime. It's an interesting stall-based tactic for a melee cleave versus spellcaster, but you have to pick your moments of time when you decide to convene on one target. That's usually when Drainer activates Way of the Crane. So I'm curious to see how they reposition from this stall-based split damage strategy to one big swing with the Way of the Crane. If they can't coordinate together on that big swing, then they're not going to get any defensive cooldowns. Although stalling could be a way for them to win on mana. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, definitely. And like I kind of talked about, as dampening gets higher, and if Cervantes and Nerd Rage can have high uptime on Valet, they can eventually take him down. But it's just so punishing. With Fried Kitty able to free cast, he's really getting a lot of value out of his Frostbolt build, I assume is what he's running. I'm going to quickly check here to see exactly what talents Fried Kitty is running, because I think it would be intelligent for him to be running a build where if he is able to just free cast, he can put out huge pressure, as Valet is likely the primary target. That's allows him to build up a lot of momentum for his team and really punish the Pumpers for staying and spending too much time in the open.
Yeah, see what they can get done. Still split DPS strategy right now for the Pumpers, playing it slow and steady against Change My Mind. Neither team really making an aggressive push just yet. Cervantes activates Apocalypse and that Abomination. Perhaps Cervantes should be attacking the Shadow Priest. That Abomination is so easily avoided with a Blink and a Frost Nova. A lot of the extra damage that Death Knight brings with his ghoulish army is going to be negated with one spellcast from the Mage. So how do you feel about that? Do you think maybe Nerd Rage should be on the Mage instead and Cervantes on the Shadow Priest? I guess with the Warrior on the Shadow Priest, you limit the self-healing with the Mortal Strike, but you lose some damage, and still Nerd Rage is taking huge punishment. But how do you feel about the targeting from the team of the Pumpers?
Well, a Warrior on a Frost Mage is
still just as...
it's not really an ideal situation.
he becomes the Abomination.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to be turning Nerd Rage into a waddling Abomination in the matchup, so I think it's more important that Cervantes, with some of the tools that the Death Knight has available, like the Death's Advance, he's going to be able to have more uptime on to Fried Kitty and limit the damage he can put out. Nerd Rage, I think it's intelligent, he's on Valet, but I like that he moves over and puts his damage on Fried Kitty occasionally as well, forcing Minpoike to focus a little bit more on single target healing. But the thing is, in this matchup so far, Minpoike has been able to do whatever he wants. Really, Change My Mind is not under too much pressure. He's been able to sit back, he's throwing out Solar Ass, he's been able to sit down for a drink. Minpoike is just enjoying a beautiful sunny day at this point in the match, but things are going to start getting really intense for Change My Mind, especially if the Pumpers can hold on for a little bit longer. This composition they run in particular seems to really excel at that 20 to 30% dampening mark. That's when Sharpened Blade with dampening is going to be ultra effective at really reducing the healing Minpoike has available. And that's when we're going to see massive cooldown overlaps.
Counterspell on Drainer, putting him behind. Deeper into dampening, Cervantes going to be a liability with a situation like that occurring again later on. There's no real opening anymore. Since this split DPS strategy has slowed the game down quite a lot. Any advantage or edge either team had early on is basically reset. And now Minpoike caught in crowd control. Drainer is trying to gets counterspelled again. Fried Kitty is nailing these. Drainer can't afford that. He's getting crowd controlled further by a silence. Now into a bash. Cervantes, are you going to trade? Icebound Fortitude allows him to break out of the stun. Overlapped with the Life Cocoon, and Pumpers look like they're starting to panic.
Yeah, I mean, it does get scary for them the longer they stay in the open, especially with the build that Change My Mind is running. In particular, Fried Kitty is really opting into that Frostbolt damage, actually playing Lonely Winter as well. So he sacrifices his Water Elemental, it gives him empowered single target damage. And that's when he can start really ripping in with those Shatter combos with the Frostbolt Flurry. Ice Lances, putting out massive damage. Drainer pushing in, gets polymorphed on his way of the Crane, unfortunately, but does manage to top off his team. Valet looking for some pressure here. Drainer getting feared away. Good crowd control from Change My Mind. What can they get done with it? Nerd Rage sitting in defensive stance, trying to move away. Big shatter combo landing by Fried Kitty. But Nerd Rage behind the pillar should ultimately be able to stabilize. Poike looking for a Cyclone as Drainer rolls away from that, avoiding crowd control. Nice positioning by the Pumpers. Now we're looking at a reset.
Yeah, complete reset between the teams. The advantage now, though, in favor of Change My Mind with Icebound Fortitude on cooldown for another 1 minute and 39 seconds. Crowd control secured. If Fried Kitty and Valet can coordinate some damage here, this would be an opportunity, but if they can't, then Drainer is likely on diminishing return, which means he'll freely be able to activate Wave the Crane in 4 more seconds, and with Wave the Crane activated, his damage will be a lot higher. I'm curious to see if he wants to take this window to utilize it. Getting Cyclone now, exposing himself to try and get aggressive later, could cost him the game. Nerd Rage Spell Reflex, leap backs away, barely survives. Drainer silence now. Polymorph diminishing return likely has faded. Life Cocoon, die by the sword. Cooldown overlap. Change My Mind, secure their lead.
Yep, definitely. That was a big defensive cooldown overlap there. We got die by the sword, Life Cocoon, anti-magic zone, Cervantes trinketed, Nerd Rage used his Fire Blood Racial with the Dark Iron Dwarf, so the Pumpers don't have a lot left to work with. And Drainer opting into Relentless does not have a PvP trinket available to break out of crowd control with the Gladiator's Medallion. But unfortunately, Changed My Mind wasn't able to really get too much done with that polymorph. Cervantes still marching, trying to chase down Fried Kitty. Fried Kitty with good positioning, pulling him out in the open. And at this point in the game, Cervantes is going to have to think twice about chasing Fried Kitty into the open, as that's when Valet and Fried Kitty can really get out significant damage in terms of mana. Poike still has a lead over Drainer. Now Poike pushing in, gets the crowd control on the Drainer. Cervantes very exposed here in midfield. Valet has to try to back Fried Kitty up just a little bit and get some damage rolling. If they can continue the crowd control chain, this could be scary, but also for the Pumpers, they're starting to generate some pressure. Fried Kitty getting a little bit low. Poike is going to have to play catch up with no Innervate available, potentially wasting a whole bunch of mana. And the Pumpers are looking solid here, but still Cervantes, he has to be a little bit careful.
Valet not running Critical Strike as a priority stat, running Haste and Versatility to try and make himself more durable and to make it deeper into dampening with more mana. Fried Kitty as well running that build with more Haste and Versatility. I do like this strategy from Change My Mind because at 50% dampening, they're just going to kill Cervantes on that Death Knight. So making themselves as durable as possible to extend that game as long as they can seems to be the best option. Will that build difference be enough to overcome the extra bonus damage from Way of the Crane? So far, it looks good. Cervantes gets denied from his anti-magic shield, but even still, Drainer dispels it, now activated, protects himself. The split damage strategy starting to sink in a little bit more deep now at 30% dampening, and Poike may need to look to try and reset his mana here shortly. Fried Kitty gets stunned up, but nobody connecting on the stun, and this is what I was saying earlier in the matches. Sure, the split strategy maximizes your damage and diminishes the amount of damage that the spellcasters do, but you're really not threatening a kill with only one member on the target. At certain points in the game, all 3 need to convene on the same player, usually during a stun. So a stun right now, which is on diminishing return, another big mistake by the Pumpers, would have been a good opportunity for all 3 members to just connect, burst down a target, and try and get an ice block. They're not really coordinating that well together, and they're not finding any openings as a result.
Yeah, Valet getting a little bit low, and Poike having to use a lot of mana there. Drainer finally with a mana lead here. Sharpened Blade activated. Stormbolts as well. Valet could be forced into the dispersion. Fried Kitty trying to counter pressure with the Ray of Frost. Manages to find some damage, but really not enough to force Cervantes and Nerd Rage to back off. At 35% dampening, this is going to get spicy for both teams. Drainer, how is he going to keep his team alive? He has the Way of the Crane available. He really has to pick his moment. And without the trinket available, he needs to try to get put onto diminishing returns if he gets polymorphed up. After that is an opportunity for him to push in, or if he can get a nice double leg sweep, which he does manage to find. Fried Kitty getting low, forced into the ice block, and that's his Icy Veins as well. This is when he really wants to get aggressive, jumping out of the ice block, landing the full polymorph onto Drainer. Now Nerd Rage a little bit vulnerable, really getting low, and Poike doing a good job topping off his team. Actually sat down for a drink, used his Innervate. That was a perfectly timed Innervate by Poike as both members were low, and he had to expend a lot of mana, so intelligently done. But at the time being, Pumpers have completely stabilized. They still have a lot of defensive cooldowns to rotate through, and they managed to get that ice block from Fried Kitty, who still hasn't used his Cold Snap. He just used Cold Snap, so now doesn't have that 3rd ice block available for about 5 minutes.
Probably won't get a 3rd ice block in the game. The Pumpers finally coordinating together and forcing priority defensive cooldowns. Good evasive maneuvers. Nerd Rage saw crowd control and Drainer and said, all right, I'm not going to get any healing, so I can't be out in the middle of the map anymore. It's time to heroic leap back to a pillar and cast some first aid, bandage himself up, and wait for Drainer to get out of crowd control. spending a lot of time at the pillar, and this is now the danger. Cervantes doesn't have Heroic Leap on the Death Knight. He's going to have to waddle his way back to the pillar, and while he waddles, he takes a lot of damage, and it's 50% dampening. It's unlikely that he will be able to recover from that amount of damage. Cervantes gets bashed up before he can duck around the corner. More casted spells incoming. The pumpers start to fall behind, and Drainer now has to make a choice. When is he going to go for it? When are they going to go for the way of the crane? Are they going to do a Death Grip strategy? Try and pin Fried Kitty behind the pillar? That's what they're going to do. Fried Kitty trinkets and blinks away to escape to safety. Good reaction time by Fried Kitty, stalling out what could have been a scary moment.
Yeah, definitely, but Cervantes still has uptime. You can see the Abomination waddling towards Fried Kitty. If that has uptime, it's going to cause significant damage. He needs to try to kite that. Both Valet and Fried Kitty getting low. Fried Kitty could potentially fall. Nerd Rage has to trade out the Die by the Sword with an interrupt onto Drainer. He activates Way of the Crane, but he gets feared on it. Big punish here from Change My Mind. Can they take down Nerd Rage? He's sitting in the anti-magic zone. Heroic leaps away, just trying to avoid damage at all costs. It's going to be very difficult for Drainer to actually top him back off. He has the Life Cocoon coming up in a few seconds. Nerd Rage just has to hold on. Bash coming in from the Poike. Drainer trades out the Everyman for himself. Get out of that stun, connect the Life Cocoon, but at 49% dampening, that's really not going to be doing too much. Fried Kitty, in the meantime, also taking a significant amount of damage. He blinks away. Nerd Rage cannot afford to follow up, and unfortunately for the pumpers, Change My Mind, we're able to get a ton of defensive cooldowns at the cost of basically nothing.
Yeah, it's a race to the finish in the final moments of this game. You have to make a risky decision and go all out for a kill. This is one of those games where we may see a cross kill. It could come down to a 2 versus 2 and an exchange likely between Nerd Rage and Fried Kitty. Fried Kitty right now is ahead. He's got Ice Block, so he should be able to kill off Nerd Rage, then survive with that Ice Block. Now they're splitting up some of their damage onto Valet, maybe trying to switch the heal over time effects. They bait an Iron Bark. Now Iron Bark won't be available. With Icy Veins activated, Fried Kitty is ready to close this game out. Tons of damage following that up. Perfect combo execution. Fried Kitty closes it out. Change My Mind win the blind pick, and if history repeats itself, likely to win the series now.
That is the really important thing to know. It was 3-2. It was a series that you may not have gotten to see because it was off broadcast, but that was one of the big ones where a lot of the guys started saying it is just so important for the pumpers to be able to take that blind pick.
Yep, and I mean, both of these teams, they are very, very evenly matched in terms of points right now, and also just in terms of what they're actually playing. So, on the side of Change My Mind, they have the Rogue Mage Druid, which is good against a certain amount of things, like the Boomkin DK in this case. And then, of course, they also have their Shadow Priest Mage, which is good against the melee cleave. Now, on the side of the pumpers, if they run the Moonkin DK into what Change My Mind are currently running with the Mage Shadow Priest, they have the advantage in that matchup. Now, if they were to run the Moonkin and the DK into the Rogue Mage, then that's a losing matchup for them. So it's literally both of these teams have 2 compositions, and one of each beats the other. So it really is a toss-up between the blind pick here. And the biggest telling thing for me here is going to be, can the pumpers win on a disadvantaged map or a disadvantaged comp later on in potentially game number 3? Because now most likely we're going to see the Rogue Mage Druid locked in from Change My Mind, and then we're going to see, actually, we might see the Shadow Priest Mage. Most likely Rogue Mage though, especially if the map is small, which it probably will be. And then we're going to see it back again to this matchup, and it's going to be a back and forth. The pumpers basically needs to win this match that we just saw here on this comp in order to win the series later on.
Yeah, basically what 100% what needs to happen is the pumpers need to lose or need to win on a disadvantaged game. And that is not an easy thing to do when we know the teams are so evenly matched. We know that the countercomping potential is 100% there because it has been used time and time again. If you're Change My Mind right now, you're definitely very happy with that victory. You do not want to throw this series because you start to secure yourself land if you are able to even make it. If you're able to make it to Sunday, first of all, you get the top 3. If you're able to make it all the way to the grand final, though, all of the sudden it's just looking like you might be a team that's impossible to catch up to. So Sid, do you think that they're going to be able to hold this victory? Do you think they're going to be able to hold this momentum?
I mean, it was Valet that said that he thinks the pumpers are going to be figured out, so he better put his money where his mouth is here in this series, because potentially the pumpers could maybe knock Change My Mind down a peg in terms of the standings, and then that last cup swings around. Maybe ABC have a comeback. there's a lot on the line. They can't afford to lose it.
This is even beyond saying the fact that, okay, this particular team is one that maybe has been figured out now that you look at some of their compositions. Wasn't Valet also the one who did start to talk about when those Bonded Souls changes happening, just how much that really affected the comps that they had and the melee?
I mean, in this match in particular, I mean, it hampers both sides to some degree because both sides lost healing, but when you're the melee class and you're overextended and you've lost healing, you can't hit the other target. If it's not taking damage, and you are, mathematically you're losing out on a lot more by losing out on the Bonded Souls healing. So it's not surprising to see why we see this composition, the Shadow Priest Mage. But of course, Fnaubers on that Balance Druid is supposed to be the answer for the Wizard composition. So if we see them blind lock it in, then we will expect to see Fnaubers. So it's really up to what they're more afraid of. Are they more afraid of the Balance Druid Death Knight with this Wizard Cleave composition on a small map, or are they more afraid of the Arms Warrior Death Knight on a small map with Rogue Mage? I think that based on when I was talking to him, it's likely that they'll blind lock Rogue Mage, and they probably have a better chance. And yeah, blind lock Rogue Mage, they feel they have a better chance against the Warrior Death Knight in this regard, and they do. There's definitely potential with the Warrior being more vulnerable target than that of the Demon Hunter that we've seen in other Cleave compositions. So you can't count Change My Mind out here. They might just advance to match point.
Hey, if they're able to do that, that's a pretty scary position to be in for the Pumpers. How do you like their composition here, the Pumpers?
I mean, I don't really like it that much. I think on the smaller map like Dalaran Sewers, it's a little bit better. I actually ended to change my mind what they're running. I didn't actually see Change My Mind was running the Rogue Mage Druid. So I think this is a really solid composition.
Your mind?
It definitely changed my mind. I think the Pumpers, compositionally in the past, they've done very well into Rogue Mage Druid. So I think this is a solid setup for them. And this is typically why we see these teams go back and forth. Because Change My Mind is in a position where if they had locked in the Shadow Priest Frostmage Restoration Druid, then all of a sudden the Pumpers, they're going to be feeling confident to bring in the Balance Druid. With Fnaubers, Cervantes on the Death Knight, and then Drainer on the Mistweaver Monk, and that puts them in a great spot to close out this game. And Change My Mind, they're feeling like they would rather be in this particular matchup with the Rogue Mage Druid. We saw earlier on in the tournament that they were playing really well. They were firing on all cylinders, had beautiful cross crowd control, and I think if they can pull that off, there's still a chance for them to win this matchup, although I do think the Pumpers is likely to win.
Out of all the teams today, Zico, that have shown that they can win on a disadvantaged matchup, I really do feel like Change My Mind has to be that team that's jumping off the page. All of a sudden, they play this Rogue Mage like they are just hands down one of the best Rogue Mages. Obviously, this is a team when you look at them, you're like, okay, they're going to be one of the best Rogue Mage teams. You expect that. That's just something that's happened with Minpoike time and time again. He tends to be on rosters like this. And then you have Acrolaws, who was on one of the more aggressive teams last year and really one of those breakout players. You expect them to be a really strong Rogue Mage team. But today, they just seem to be in a league even beyond what we've seen them perform before.
Yeah, you can tell that this seems to be one of those teams that just... the pressure isn't getting to them, it's making them actually play better.
Yeah.
Definitely, we've seen that in their first couple of series as well, but to the Pumpers' credit, they did also win what I and many of us here on the desk would consider to be a very hard counter as well in their series against ABC, so I definitely wouldn't be counting them out completely. Now, I want to just throw us back to the previous series very, very quickly when Change My Mind actually played against Plot Twist. It was on this map, it was against Rezus and Numlis and Infernium playing that Warlock, Mistweaver, Windwalker. And that Mistweaver in that match, he was crowd controlled pretty much the entire match. So, I mean, they're playing the same matchup essentially with the Rogue Mage versus a Mistweaver, but there's a lot of more disruption on the side of the Pumpers here. Still, though, if they can replicate what they were able to do in that game with how they crowd controlled, they could even take this map right here and make it 2-0.
All right, let's see if Change My Mind is going to be able to do it, or if the Pumpers are going to be able to even out the scale of this series.
Change My Mind have been on point all day, aside from maybe that one double Destro flop of Minpoike, but really everything outside of that has been perfect on their part. So today could be the day that they overcome this matchup disadvantage, although Fried Kitty getting bursted down early on, desperately trying to blink to safety, has that Ray of Frost fully channeled with Icy Veins. Cervantes denies with that anti-magic zone. Nerd Rage protected by that purple barrier, but Drainer still crowd controlled. Cervantes crowd controlled now. Nerd Rage in a 3-on-1. Disarms Acro to try and deny some pressure, but Glaire's Maledict is absorbing a lot of healing. Life Cocoon forced from Drainer early on. A significant lead for Change My Mind. Beautiful Cyclone.
Definitely, Nerd Rage going to be frozen in that last little bit of the Life Cocoon. Not going to get much value. Acro with a beautiful smoke bomb play. Can he take Nerd Rage down? Drainer finds the heals that he needs with a nice Cyclone. I think that was stolen by Cervantes, so Dark Simulacrum going to be used by Cervantes in this matchup, and Poike and Fried Kitty need to make sure that he's not taking critical spells like the Polymorph as well as the Cyclone. If Cervantes can take those consistently, it's going to be extra crowd control for his team that he can steal, and that gets his team a lot of pressure and momentum, and in that case actually kept his team alive. So really well done there by Cervantes, and we've been seeing him make really good plays with that ability in this matchup. Definitely a threat on that Death Knight. Drainer, Cervantes, Nerd Rage, all three of them don't have a trinket, and that is not what you want against a team like Change My Mind, especially with the way they've been crowd controlling with their Rogue Mage Druid. Change My Mind potentially just one good setup away from closing out this game.
All right, let's see if they can execute on it. They've got a huge window of time to net that kill. Acro gets leg sweeped by Drainer. It's more of a preemptive play to try and stall it out, but Acro and Fried Kitty aren't falling for it. They've still got a huge opening. The Ring of Peace stalls it a little bit longer. Acro can't connect. They want to be attacking Nerd Rage. They don't want to be attacking this Death Knight. Too difficult, too durable to take on this early on. Fried Kitty's got Blizzard right on top of all those Apocalypse Ghouls. That was well timed by Fried Kitty. He can then reduce the cooldown of his Frozen Orb. Well done. Let's see if he can get some pressure out. He's fully loaded on Icicles. Maybe they swapped a Drainer. He's expecting that. He activated Fortified Elixir, expecting a swap to himself, but then they didn't do it. They're playing it so patiently. They still have 25 seconds to kill Drainer if they want to swap. He might even pre-Life Cocoon. He Transcendence portals away from Acro. Acro Shadow Steps then to Nerd Rage. Gets gripped away. Can't connect to Drainer. They do want to kill Drainer. He just got Flurry comboed, but Acro couldn't make it. He's trying to get there. He fully kidney shots him. He pre-Life Cocoons, but he pre-Life Cocooned the wrong target. Drainer's fully exposed, and with that tiny opening, Change My Mind, take it.
What? No, I don't know what Drainer was thinking there. He played it perfectly, beautifully, denied the setup for so long, and then finally when Acro was about to get some damage rolling, he accidentally Life Cocooned the wrong target. Or maybe he thought they were going on a Nerd Rage, but I'll have to check out the replay. I think Drainer definitely made a little bit of a misplay there, although he preemptively, there's a lot to be done in a setup like that.
Was that a throw?
I mean, let's just rewatch that part, because he has the Fortifying Brew, so for sure he knows that he's the target. He knows that there is an opening before he's going to have his Gladiator's Medallion, and he can see clearly that Acro is looking to set up on him. Nerd Rage gets it has to be a misclick. It has to be a misclick for sure here. Yeah, that's guaranteed a misclick.
Or he thought more damage was going to happen.
Well, the thing is, he doesn't have his... he might have thought that he was going to get blinded, and then he saw the Sheep Shot onto Nerd Rage. I actually don't think it was a misclick. So I think what he saw was the Cheap Shot onto Nerd Rage, and then he thought he was going to get blinded there, so he wanted to preemptively Life Cocoon the blind in that small window there, and they ended up just cheap-shotting Nerd Rage. But the thing is, Nerd Rage also got polyed up before that setup, so it kind of telegraphed a little bit what they wanted to do. It's hard to tell just from being here without actually having the comms, but it looks like that was on purpose, and he just read the situation wrong. And for what it's worth, I do gotta commend as well how well Change My Mind played that. Again, they knew that the anti-magic zone was available on Cervantes. Instead of blinding up the healer or blinding up Nerd Rage, they blind up Cervantes with that swap to deny that big purple shield that would actually save him there. So it was brilliantly executed as well from Change My Mind.
Well, I think that's really the thing that we have to say for Change My Mind. They're forcing mistakes out of the best teams today. They've just done it time and time again. They're not in the best of situations in the lower side of the bracket, but they definitely have shown what they can do. Currently in NA, though, we're also trying to see what these top teams can do. We're in the middle of a matchup right now with Method Orange against the Mew Mew Kitty Cats. Method Orange going to be leading by 1 in the blind pick, Sea-Doo versus Ja. And then later on today, also, we are going to have Storm, and they're going to be going against the Super Frog. So those are the two matchups that are going to happen off broadcast for North America. Pretty exciting matchups as well. And those are going to start to set up those lower quarters that we're going to be seeing tomorrow. North America already looking like one of... you know what? I don't often say this. I think this is the juiciest bracket we've seen from North America all year.
I was actually just about to use that exact same word to describe this. This bracket is very juicy. The move, I think it's the first time they're in the upper, and they're basically neck and neck in points with Never Lucky. Super Frogs in the lower bracket, Method Orange in the lower bracket. That entire bracket is just wide open. If either of those teams, either of those teams will get knocked down, and that means one of those sponges that have been soaking up these points is not going to be able to do it, which means there's more points to go around for teams like the Move to potentially make a run here. So, a very exciting day tomorrow as well for North America.
Yeah, and I mean, the bracket doesn't even show like what WizK did, right? That's something that we're definitely going to talk about tomorrow. WizK, we know what you did. So now we take a look. Change My Mind leading by 2 in this series. We'll talk about North America tomorrow. It's time to focus on EU. Change My Mind has impressed us. How do the Pumpers take it back here in Tolvaron?
Well, they just have to clean up their gameplay. Like I kind of mentioned on Dalaran Sewers, there was a moment in the game where all 3 members of the Pumpers use their trinket at the same time, and that is not a position you want to be in. You have to rotate through those Gladiators medallions, so at least somebody can stop what's going on. If no one has a trinket, that means Change My Mind will be able to get out good crowd control, especially off the back of the Vanish from Acro. If he can Vanish and get multiple cheap shots out, he still has his blind available, then the Pumpers are in a world of hurt. So they just have to be a little bit better rotating through their defensives, and that's normally what we do see from them. So I expect this matchup to potentially play out a little bit different, but with the map pick, I feel like, I don't know why the Pumpers opted to go for Tolvaron Arena. It's a bit of a throw, in my opinion, because as a Frostmage Resto Druid, this isn't a bad spot to play out this matchup.
It's got to be a takeaway. That's the only thing I can come up with.
But on match point, takeaway is like...
I guess they're thinking long-term rather than, oh, we're going to lock in this composition on a small map. They're going to lock in Rogue Mage, which is quite effective on a small map as well. And then all of a sudden, we're going to go to Tolvaron Arena, and that's going to be very, very difficult. But I agree with you. It's definitely a risky move.
Well, would you rather fight Rogue Mage on Tolvaron or Shadow Priest Mage on Tolvaron?
I would
That's what
rather,
you're saying, right? In terms of the long haul of the whole series, what you stand a better chance of.
Well, I think one of the other things is as well that it's just really hard to play as a Mistweaver against the Frostmage Druid on a small map. I mean, we saw what happened to Numliz in the previous series that Changed My Mind play, and we saw Draenor as well getting crowd control. And Draenor, just from experience playing against him on that Monk, he is very, very annoying to crowd control. He keeps porting. There's a lot of mind games going on with this guy. He is very, very good at just avoiding crowd control altogether. So it has to be also just that they think it's a bit better for them that they can potentially just sustain a longer period of time on a map like Tolvaron Arena.
Well, I think that one thing that this map does somewhat show us here in this series also is the Pumpers are in a pretty dire situation. The other thing that says that is the score for it. Change My Mind trying to knock them out of the tournament right here, right now in the last series and potentially the last game of the day.
Yeah, let's see if they can do it here. Change My Mind have been on point. Although their compositions aren't suited for the current meta, they've still just been consistent, and that's the name of the game for them to qualify to that spring final later this year. They're looking solid against the Pumpers overall. They've definitely polished up their Rogue Mage. If Rogue Mage suddenly becomes the meta, I wonder if Change My Mind even just takes the next cup, if that's the case, if the meta shifts that way. It does appear to be the case here as the Pumpers lock in their worst map to try and get a more favorable comp matchup. They want to avoid the Shadow Priest Mage on Tolvaron, so instead running it into the Rogue Mage here. Draenor portaling back to the pillar, needs to get out of line of sight. That side wall not going to be enough to avoid the incoming Polymorphs for now. Smoke Bomb gets dropped. That baits Draenor to roll in. No crowd control, though, initiated off the back. You'd normally see the Mage cast Polymorph just as Draenor rolls in, but Fried Kitty not taking advantage of that. Vendetta activated. Life Cocoon easily exchanges for that. There's no Smoke Bomb threat. There's no Icy Veins threat. If you're the Pumpers, you start getting aggressive now.
Yeah, definitely. Drainer's been having excellent positioning on this matchup, or in this matchup, like Zico is kind of alluding to. Makes it really difficult for Fried Kitty to actually land any sort of polymorphs. Acro tries to set him up with the cheap shot, but Cervantes and Nerd Rage always available to back him up, and Draenor always has an exit plan. He puts himself in a position where Fried Kitty has to use blinks, and when he does, Draenor can easily just port or roll away. And always just seems to be ahead of Change My Mind in terms of positioning, at least on this map. Once again, Fried Kitty looking for a polymorph off the back of that cheap shot from Acro, but Draenor is protected by Nerd Rage and Cervantes, and now Change My Mind hasn't really been able to find too much crowd control in this matchup whatsoever. So maybe on this map, with how Drainor's playing and how they're positioning, it seems to actually be in favor of the Pumpers, at least at this point.
Yeah, it's looking better and better for them here. If the Pumpers can take Tolvaron out of the map pool, they still got Ashamanes. I mean, that's just as bad in my opinion. So Change My Mind have set themselves up well for success here. Blind attempt. Let's see what they can manage to pull off this. Acro Shadow Step kicks the trinket. Fried Kitty Frost Novas to set up for a polymorph. Not able to find it. Instead, just deciding to retreat away and avoid the avatar. Although Acro sets up Fried Kitty well with those cheap shots. Surprised to see no polymorph attempt. Fried Kitty focused way more on defense. Potentially even Poike trying to sit down for a drink, and that's exactly what's going on. Rather than getting aggressive and overextending, Fried Kitty just playing it calm, cool, and collected for a late game advantage, now with a significant mana lead.
Yeah, we'll have to see what exactly they can get done with that mana lead. Drainer might be able to sneak off for a drink at this point in the game, as he does move behind the pillar, looking like he wants to go for that drink attempt, as Nerd Rage and Cervantes going to be relatively healthy. If Drainer can completely recover his mana, it's going to be a great spot to be in. And Poike moves in, looking for a Vortex. Does manage to find it. So all basically Drainer was able to get done right there was force Poike to push in and also just waste a bit of time, unfortunately, for him. But Changed My Mind really wasn't able to get too much rolling. If we look at cooldowns, Nerd Rage still has his Trinket, Dab of the Sword available. If he needs to, he's going to be heroic leaping away. Acro Shadow Steps there. Cervantes with a beautiful Death Grip, freeing up Nerd Rage just a little bit. Drainer forced to connect the Life Cocoon. Unfortunately for them, now burning through a lot of the defensive cooldowns, with Poike pushing to get aggressive, looking for crowd control onto Drainer. And I honestly wonder how many polymorphs has Fried Kitty been able to sneak in this matchup.
I don't even think it's been one yet. Yeah. Well, there's one.
Okay, there you go.
Good setup by Change My Mind. All three members crowd control. Cervantes uses Icebound Fortitude to activate Anti-Magic Zone to exchange. So Cervantes throws away his personal defensive lineup to save Nerd Rage in his moment of vulnerability. And as the Death Knight before dampening, I think that's not even a risk to take. That's just the right move. So Nerd Rage activating those before he gets cycloned and can't do so. Good reaction time on Cervantes' part. That's going to allow them to get more aggressive. What can they get done with that aggression? Doesn't look to be like too much, as Drainer's back at the pillar. Nerd Rage is taking huge pain right now in midfield. Drainer fair trade on this blind with the Glaire's Medallion. I'm not sure if the Life Cocoon was really necessary with Acro sitting a full intimidating shout. Maybe more of a precautionary measure on Drainer's part. Drainer rolls in for the leg sweep, but Acro didn't get hit. Potentially he could save Fried Kitty's Ice Block with a kidney shot here. Ice Barrier, Frost Nova. Seems to be enough for Fried Kitty to stall. No Ice Block forced, although now mana in favor of Drainer's side. Acro gets disarmed during this kill window attempt on Nerd Rage with the Frozen Orb. Good defensive play on his part with that Warrior. Poike, though, snuck away. And the mana lead that I said was in favor of Drainer is now significantly in favor of Change My Mind.
Yeah, Poike consistently throughout the entire day has been doing an excellent job running away, making sure he can get the drinks off when he needs them. Now Drainer looking to recover his mana as Nerd Rage heroic leaps behind the pillar, and we're looking at a full reset on mana. The Pumpers managed to secure their mana lead, and that's definitely a spot you want to be in at 3% dampening, as it's unlikely later on in the game you can recover that precious mana when healing becomes just so difficult to get off. Fried Kitty getting low. Gladiator, Safeguard, and Ice Barrier are going to proc to keep him alive, but he gets Death Gripped on his double blink. Now in a lot of trouble, forced into the first Ice Block of the match.
Yep, the Pumpers stay in it here. They want to stay alive in the lower bracket. They face elimination. It's match point. Potentially their shot at qualifying for the spring finals. The Pumpers cannot afford to lose this series, but Change My Mind have been so dominant throughout the day. What can they get done? Drainer's trying to lead the charge, gets caught in center field with the polymorph. Glaire's Maledict soaking up any incoming heals. Nerd Rage in desperation tries to fear up the whole team. Acro trinkets and gets the sap, looking for some crowd control onto the trinket, but there's no trinket even available. Drainer continues to be crowd controlled. The Nerd Rage's defense has been cracked. He's desperate, but Fried Kitty as well, with a stolen polymorph rotated around on him in Poike. The second Ice Block has been forced, and suddenly both teams are running on empty.
Yeah, but the Pumpers, they still have a massive lead. Nerd Rage with his Trinket, Drainer with Trinket, Life Cocoon. They should have enough tools to make the final push here onto Fried Kitty. Are they going to be able to do it? Full blind on Drainer. He's opting to actually just sit it. Acro with no Vanish available is unlikely to find a sap. Looks like Fried Kitty's going to get denied on follow-up polymorph as well, and that was a good read by Drainer, realizing the situation. Now a cheap shot coming in from Acro. What is Fried Kitty going to do? Looking for a polymorph, gets denied. Drainer doing an excellent job running to the Blizzard. Even if he got polymorph there, would have just broke instantaneously, and that's the kind of positioning and offensive play we love to see from Drainer in this matchup. Nerd Rage and Cervantes always backing him up, just making it so difficult. Fried Kitty with the Icy Veins, though, sneaks in a polymorph. Who are they going to go after? Nerd Rage taking a little bit of damage. Full Kitty shot secured there by Acro. Can Change My Mind take him down?
And Poike needs to set up for a Cyclone. He jumps into midfield, but he's too late. Crowd control chain has been dropped. Now he's got Way of the Crane. Drainer could just get the kill right here and now. Way of the Crane gets popped. They're looking to close it out here. They need it. Can they stay alive on their worst pop possible map? And Poike tries to deny, fake casting some interrupts, trying to find a Cyclone, not able to. All three members connecting. Fried Kitty trying to utilize that Blizzard to avoid damage as long as possible with no ice blocks. It's a scary moment, but he's managed to make it out at least alive to this point. Acro rotted down. Mana still tied up here at 17% dampening. Drainer gets Shadow Step kicked. Acro trying to set up for some burst here. Flurry combo. Frozen Orb nailed down. Smoke Bomb gets dropped. Drainer gets Cheap Shot. Where's the Polymorph? Fried Kitty blinks into the bomb to avoid being gripped or interrupted. Perfect positioning. Perfect execution. Drainer denies the kill for a little bit longer, but then gets cycloned at low health by Minpoike. Can Minpoike rotate this over? Fried Kitty's moving forward like they want to lock Drainer out of this. Nerd Rage denies the connect with a double intimidating shout, stalling it out and allowing his team a few moments to breathe. Neither side really working with a lot in terms of cooldowns, and it's still anyone's match.
Well, here's the problem for Drainer. Acro has his blind coming back up, and Drainer's not going to have anything ready for it. If Acro can land the full blind on Drainer with Vendetta on Nerd Rage, it's going to be disastrous for the Pumpers. Change My Mind, they just have to make sure they're patient with this last offensive push of potentially the game. If they can pull it off, if Fried Kitty has the damage, could be an easy win here for Change My Mind. This is it. Full blind on Drainer. What are they going to get done?
Let's see if they can get the kill. Change My Mind look to assert dominance as the third-seeded team at the moment in the Europe region. Triple crowd control. Minpoike sifted through some interrupts. The anti-magic zone's the only line of defense. Nerd Rage doesn't care, throwing caution to the wind, trying to get a kill at the same time as he could go down. He has to abort the mission, leaping back to the pillar. Manages to stay alive, not over-committing there. Now he's got Die by the Sword to work with. Minpoike still aggressively positioned, working through more interrupts, but Fried Kitty doesn't have a lot. That over-aggression position might cost him the game here. Fried Kitty, multiple Maledicts flying in. Way of the Crane is pumping. The Pumpers look to close up. Minpoike gets Ring of Peace on his Nourish cast. He gets gripped on the follow-up. Where's the denial? They have to stop Minpoike from dealing any Nourishes. Not able to find it. Nerd Rage preemptively Die by the Swords to try and avoid kidney shots and try and stay alive. Cervantes uses Icebound Fortitude to get a kill. It's do or die.
Yeah, definitely a lot of trouble for both teams. Drainer gets interrupted. Nerd Rage could fall potentially as well. Fried Kitty has Temporal Shield looking to deny the damage, but Nerd Rage may have overstayed his welcome. Drainer finds the leg sweep, but a kidney shot on Nerd Rage denies his damage. And Fried Kitty only has 10 seconds left on that Icy Veins. If they can hold on to that point, which it's looking like they can with Minpoike throwing out the Iron Bark, I think that Change My Mind will be able to find the kill, but Drainer still has his Trinket and Life Cocoon to potentially deny as well. No blind threat still from Acro for about another minute, so Drainer's going to be feeling confident. Fried Kitty gets lower. Can Nerd Rage take him down? Acro saves today with the kidney shot. Cervantes trinkets out, gets cheap shot on it, but once again, Drainer there to seal the deal, close out the game. Rising Sun Kick to Fried Kitty's face, and the Pumpers take victory.
And obviously, it does get a little bit dicey when we don't see the Pumpers able to take game number 2, but a big thing that does get done here is one of those big maps, so they are going to have that takeaway, potentially attempting to bait out maybe even God Comp, but at the end of the day, they get Tolveron out of the pool.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for them, but I also think that it's great because Tolveron is wait. 1 second, we'll get back to that in 1 second. Look at this play here from Cervantes. So he kicks the Polymorph, then he Dark Simulacrums the clone from Minpoike, then he clones Minpoike. Minpoike knows he's going to do that, so he pre-Ironbarks as well. All of these players are just playing chess 5 steps ahead, basically. But that is going to force out the Iron Bark, and that is going to give them enough pressure, especially with those micro interrupts with that pet stun, onto Minpoike, to kill Fried Kitty 2 seconds before he gets his ice block back. So there's a lot of micromanaging between 2 targets there. I just wanted to highlight that because that was really cool. That was very well played. But back to the map, I think that the map also just favors them in this matchup because Drainer wasn't actually polymorphed like pretty much at all. It's always on his condition. He's always going out. Then when he knows that the polymorph is going to sneak through, he pre-life cocoons, tanks the polymorph. Now he's on diminishing return, and his teammate wasn't in that much trouble because he pre-life cocooned, and then he can go in and activate that Way of the Crane and start forcing out those ice blocks. So expertly played, and I think the map is actually good for them as well as a takeaway.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it does really, after we do see it, seems like it accomplishes pretty much everything, checks just about every box. So a map that we thought maybe wasn't the best pick, we're proved wrong here on the desk. The question is, do they have any more tricks up their sleeve that are going to be able to turn this potentially in their favor? Are we going to see this one close out on Ashmane's fall for Change My Mind? The Pumpers not going to have the momentum headed into this one, Sid.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking good for Change My Mind overall. Now, if you're the Pumpers, now you have to assess, what are you more afraid of? Are you afraid of the Balance Druid Death Knight if you lock in Shadow Priest Mage? Or are you more afraid of the Death Knights and the Warrior as the Rogue Mage? Because, I mean, they just lost that. I think if you're the Pumpers, you lock in the same composition and you just hope you can overcome it. They managed to do it against ABC earlier today, so there's potential for them to be able to do it again here against Change My Mind, but obviously Change My Mind are in a good position to take the series.
Do you think Change My Mind does close it out here? Like, after we saw Tolvaron, how does Ashmane's look for the likes of the Pumpers on the blind?
Well, the matchup is going to be completely different, since the Pumpers most likely going to look in Warrior and the DK again. I would love to see Fnaubers come in as the kind of curveball here, but most likely not going to happen. So we're going to see pretty much the same comp, and there it is. And then Change My Mind are going to look in the Shadow Priest and the Mage and the Druid, and the map is going to be in their favor, but let's not forget, it took 2% dampening for Change My Mind to actually close out that game with this matchup on Nagrand Arena. So I wouldn't say that the Pumpers are out of it just yet. I think that while they're disadvantaged in terms of map, in terms of composition, they could definitely just close it out as well. One kick on Villet, one good Dark Simulacrum, that could all of a sudden just shift the tides in their favor. And in deep dampening, honestly, anything can happen. So I wouldn't say Change My Mind are out of it. I wouldn't say the Pumpers are out of it just yet. I think they can win here, but I think the biggest question is, if they win here, there's no more big maps. Unless Mugambala Game 5.
We already saw one Mugambala today.
And it was the Pumpers locked it in?
It wasn't a Game 5.
It was ABC.
No,
it was
Change My Mind.
Change My Mind locked it in against Method Black.
Yes.
And it was Game 3, I believe, right?
Yeah,
And it was
that was their last game, right?
Maybe we see it again. Maybe we see the Mugambala dream play out time and time again. It is really fun to watch when the players do go to Mugambala. It's a different game every single time. But now the Pumpers here are going to try to extend it to the chance to even go to Mugambala in the first place. You look at Cervantes and you talk about some of those clutch Dark Sims that he actually does get off. How important do you think that is going into this matchup?
Well, it's really important. I'm not sure if he actually ran it against Change My Mind playing this particular composition. I think only against the Rogue Mage Druid, but it is really important. If you can steal a Cyclone and put a Cyclone onto Minpoike, you can reverse pressure very quickly. It also is it's a constant threat that Fried Kitty and Minpoike have to consistently be worrying about in the matchup. We've seen Cervantes even steal ice blocks, and that kept him alive in certain series. So it's definitely a wild card factor here. It's the X factor that the Pumpers really need. If they can consistently get off that crowd control or find those really important spells like the ice block, it can turn the fight in their favor relatively quickly. And like I said, it's also something Change My Mind just has to constantly be worried about.
Yeah, the ice block today was a pretty sick thing to watch. Ultimately, they weren't able to close out that game. Their backs were completely against the wall. Everybody was rotting down. But you see that, and all of a sudden, they had a chance again. So Cervantes has had some fantastic plays today. He's going to need him, though, against Change My Mind. They've looked very strong, particularly on the Rogue Mage. But Filet coming in now, he is somebody who was very confident, not only against this team, but a lot of the comps that they did have when you had a chance to talk to him, Sid.
Yeah, Filet definitely one of the best Shadow Priests in the European region, if not the entire world. Competitor at BlizzCon multiple times. Not enough to take it all the way. This year with his new roster, Change My Mind with Minpoike and Acro, he's really hoping to do it. Will he be able to is now the question. They've been consistent, but they haven't been able to overcome the top dogs, Method Black and Wildcard Gaming. So either they need to diversify their roster or hope that the meta shifts more in their favor. If the meta shifts and they stay consistent, they could be a top contender. If they can diversify moving into the future, they still could remain a contender. But either way, things need to change for them, I think, for them to go all of the way.
Well, Valet didn't necessarily have a roster last year where he got to play as much as he wanted to say the very least. And now he has one of the perfect opportunities. He feels like not only does he have the team to do it, but also we're going to see a meta that's going to work in his favor as as well. Let's see if Valet and Change My Mind can close it out here and send the Pumpers packing.
Well, things are looking very good for them. We have a nice wide open map with Ashamane's Fall. And I would say compositionally, Change My Mind definitely has an advantage, but it took them upwards of almost 60% dampening, 55% dampening to actually land a kill. And at that point in the game with an Arms Warrior with Sharpened Blade, he can limit healing so much with his Mortal Wounds effect as well as Sharpened Blade that anything can truly happen. Valet, if he gets a little bit behind, overlaps, Dispersion and his Void Shift, the Pumpers will be able to completely take advantage of that. So Change My Mind, they'll just gonna have to play it smart, calm, cool, and collected, wait for their advantage. This sort of triangle formation where you have Valet on one side of the field, Fried Kitty on the other. Valet gets gripped in, Asphyxiate. What is Valet going to do? Fried Kitty trying to punish the Pumpers here by blinking in, dropping a Frozen Orb as well as a Blizzard, but it's not gonna be getting too much done.
And we do see the Pumpers trying to employ the strategy of playing at the pillar and death gripping in the target into a stun and bursting it down. And this is the most effective strategy for their composition matchup. They were able to pull off a victory against all odds versing ABC on the same map earlier today. So it's definitely a possibility. Although the composition is slightly different with the Shadow Priest instead of the Elemental Shaman, the one main advantage that Valet brings to the fight is effectively a third similar effect to Ice Block with Void Shift. So let's say they burst down Fried Kitty, they get one Ice Block. They burst him down again a few moments later and get the second Ice Block. There's then a third defensive option with Void Shift from the Shadow Priest that Jamie on the Elemental Shaman earlier today doesn't bring. So with that added defense, when it becomes that race to the finish deep into dampening, having that third edge in your pocket to switch your health with your party member might give them that extra bar of health to find a kill. They're going to grip Minpoike in, try and go for a bit of a surprise attack. Minpoike really not getting caught off guard at all. It doesn't even trade a Bark Skin, looking like he's just going to walk it off.
Yeah, and he will be fine. Cervantes looking to still make a push, but really not able to find too much damage on Minpoike, and he should be fine. Like you kind of talked about, Change My Mind, they have a lot of defensive cooldowns at their disposal, and it's one of the reasons why the Pumpers has such a difficult time actually finding the damage. Fried Kitty, with the build he's playing, he is going to have very empowered Frostbolts with the Lonely Winter, as well as the Tunnel of Ice Frostbolt build. That basically means that if Cervantes and Nerd Rage are in the open, they're training down Valet. Fried Kitty's really going to be able to punish them with that single target damage. And you find moments like these where Drainer is caught into a polymorph. Cervantes forced to trade out not only his Fire Blood Racial, but the anti-magic shell in order to keep uptime onto Valet. But Minpoike's just been able to easily heal through this damage so far.
Yeah, Nerd Rage now on the back foot, down at half, with Drainer still locked down in crowd control. Can they keep Drainer out of the fight long enough to kill Nerd Rage is now the question. It doesn't look to be the case. Nerd Rage now looks to reverse some pressure. Minpoike responds. And with that Gyre's Medallion, Nerd Rage has to retreat, but he's been left alone for quite an extended period of time, and Drainer is across the universe in crowd control. Both Nerd Rage and Cervantes getting bursted down. Cervantes with good backup, disrupting that Ray of Frost. We do see the rallying cry of Nerd Rage boosting his health long enough for Drainer to hopefully make his way back into line of sight, but now he's with Counterspell. He's not able to fake it. Nerd Rage still in trouble as Fried Kitty looks to close out the series. Is Nerd Rage going to respond in time? He's trying to hold on to Die by the Sword, but the longer he holds on to it, it's a risky gamble. Now Cyclone at low health in that life cocoon. Change My Mind's crowd control is on point.
Yeah, definitely. Minpoike with Cyclones all day has been firing on all cylinders. Now Drainer caught into a polymorph with no Gladiator's Medallion available. Nerd Rage in a lot of trouble. He heroic leaps across the map, trying to avoid damage at all costs. Can Fried Kitty and Valet get in position? Unfortunately not. Drainer with Chi Torpedo was able to cross the map and reconnect with Nerd Rage, topping him off. But this is a situation the Pumpers don't want to find themselves in. All three members, no Gladiator's Medallion available. If Valet, Fried Kitty, and Minpoike can find optimal crowd control here, they can definitely close out this game. Minpoike doing a great job sitting down, looking for a drink. Nerd Rage and Cervantes trying to punish that by attacking Valet. They do manage to force out the Iron Bar from Minpoike, but unfortunately, really, that's all they're getting, and Minpoike was able to completely reset his mana.
Yep, good moves on Minpoike's part to secure a late game advantage. facing down the pumpers, as it is likely to go to the 40%, 50% dampening mark before Cervantes becomes a target. Nerd Rage, so long as he saves that heroic leap to run away, will be also difficult to pin down, which is why they need that 50% dampening mark to kill the Death Knight Cervantes right when Nerd Rage tries to disengage from the fight. So Change My Mind setting themselves up effectively in the matchup. There's no real openings here for the pumpers, and I don't believe Cervantes is running the Dark Simula from Honor Talent, instead going for more consistent damage and losing out on that opportunity to get extra crowd control for his team to net a kill. Perhaps a mistake to opt out of that Honor Talent overall here. It's still match point. The pumpers face elimination. If they lose this, they lose an opportunity to overthrow ABC's 4th position and potentially even Change My Mind's 3rd place position if they can go all the way. Right now, it's not looking too good.
Yeah, Cervantes, he actually is opting into Transfusion instead, so that's going to allow him to get off more death strikes in a dire moment, but it doesn't seem like he'll get too much value out of that, especially if Nerd Rage is the main target here for Change My Mind. So maybe a misplay by Cervantes, but I can't blame him. He wants to make sure he can be as durable as possible, so Change My Mind only really has one solid target to go after in this matchup. Drainer still with no trinket, makes the pumpers very vulnerable. Life Cocoon going to get traded out before the silence. Nicely done by Drainer, and I really like what Drainer's been doing in this tournament with these preemptive Life Cocoon plays. It is a short cooldown, so just trading it out to try to avoid damage as much as possible before going into crowd control allows his team a little bit of freedom. But with that Cyclone coming in from Poike, denying a lot of that effective healing from Nerd Rage and the Life Cocoon, now the pumpers could be in some trouble. 11% dampening. Nerd Rage trying to line of sight the best he can. Fried Kitty there, though, drops a Blizzard. An Ray of Frost as Nerd Rage dips behind the pillar. Can he just take him down with this Ray of Frost? Isn't able to quite find enough damage, but Nerd Rage is hiding, running for his life as Drainer's caught in crowd control across the map.
He looks like he's lost right now, just waiting for his healer to get back to him here behind the pillar. They stalled it out. Counterspell still available. Drainer has to deal with that threat. He fake casts the counterspell, gets through it. Easy breezy. Nice job, Drainer. Now stabilized and having a second chance at life here in this tournament overall. If they can somehow manage to overcome Ashamane's fall, they already took Tolvaron Arena out of the pool. There's really nowhere left to go except Mugumbala, which is chaotic to say the least. If you're Change My Mind and you have to go there, you're not feeling too comfortable.
Yeah, and I really like Nerd Rage's positioning. So basically what happens is Drainer gets caught in crowd control, and when Nerd Rage has his Heroic Leap available, he crosses the entire map. Basically what that does is it means Fried Kitty has to make a choice. Poike has to make a choice. Do they push? Do they get the damage on Nerd Rage? Or do they follow up the crowd control? And often they can't do both, so they don't have the damage to take down Nerd Rage while also crowd controlling Drainer. That gets Drainer out of crowd control and allows him to actually heal up Nerd Rage. So I think him Heroic Leaping across the entire map, breaking up his LOS from Drainer, limits the amount of damage, and crowd control Change My Mind can really get out. And now the pumpers looking for an offensive push here onto Valet. Valet could be in some trouble. Dispersion is forced out, and there is a full fear going out on him and Poike from Nerd Rage. Beautiful, intimidating shout. Valet in a lot of trouble right now, caught into the Stormbolt. What is he going to do? He still has the Void Shift, but with no Iron Bark from Poike, they might be able to force it out. But unfortunately, doesn't look like they will be able to. Fried Kitty trying to counter pressure the best they can. Iron Bark now available from Poike will be traded out with the Vampiric Embrace from Valet. And I think Valet should be able to stabilize here with a full bash onto Nerd Rage. A beautiful preemptive Life Cocoon once again coming in from Drainer will keep Nerd Rage alive.
I mean, Valet will stabilize for now, but there's actually a big window here in 10 seconds when Drainer comes out of these polymorphs to just wave the crane and just knock Valet out cold. I mean, I really want to see him go for it. What else can they do? This is their only opportunity. They've still got a couple more seconds to do it. He's on Polymorph Diminishing Return, not on Cyclone though, and unfortunately walking into one of those. Nerd Rage tries to duck for cover around the pillar. Valet hunting him down. Fried Kitty repositioning that triangle positioning to cut Nerd Rage off with one member of the team on one side. Drainer able to portal back in line of sight. No counter spell, so he should easily top Nerd Rage off. Now Valet is overextended. This is where I want to see the wave of the crane from Drainer. Why aren't they going for the big push? Maybe he's afraid of getting polymorphed. Poike sits down for a drink and they don't go for a big push. Poike gets full mana. They don't even get a Void Shift. This game is slipping away from the pumpers.
Yeah, Valet's still a little bit low as Poike gets gripped in. Leg sweep onto Valet. Safeguard does proc. What is Valet going to do? He gets the Iron Bark from Poike. Should be able to stabilize in this moment, but with a polymorph onto Drainer, Nerd Rage is increasingly vulnerable. Good uptime here from the pumpers. allows some good pressure onto Valet, but now Nerd Rage having to heroic leap away, throws out his intimidating shout on him, and Poike Stormbolt on Fried Kitty. Really looking to get some cooldowns here from Valet, but I think it's going to be Nerd Rage that's in trouble.
Valet getting chopped up, both teams in trouble, dampening a double-edged sword as it reduces incoming healing on both sides. And Poike locked out in crowd control, no iron bar for 6 more seconds. Valet starts to stabilize, Drainer reads the incoming crowd control, preemptively activates Life Cocoon, allowing Nerd Rage to get more aggressive, potentially put Valet down. Valet, smartly so, has saved his Gliders Medallion so he can pair that for a Void Shift if he needs to. I love this awareness from Cervantes. He knows that Nourish is a big threat in terms of being able to kill the target, so Cervantes always moves slightly over to interrupt Minpoike there with his Ghoul and then burst the target down. This extra crowd control from Cervantes has been why they were able to find victory in the past, but even still falling behind with 2 members low on the team, almost no mana left in the tank for Drainer. Dampening gets higher and higher. Cervantes then becomes a liability at that point. Still not much defense for Valet. Minpoike jumps in, but he gets intercepted by an Incapacitate. Fried Kitty gets Ring of Peace on the Poly, but Valet is there to follow up with the Psychic Scream. Minpoike moves in for the clone. 2 members in trouble. Dampening very high. Fried Kitty can get a Polymorph off the back end of this bash. Nerd Rage is likely to fall. It's do or die at this point. He's trying to push in for the kill. The defense has finally been cracked. Both sides in trouble, but Nerd Rage is going to fall first. Change my mind, clean it up. 3-1 the Pumpers and establish their 3rd place position.
Valet comes in too, and the matchup just looks so easy for them. That one was pretty much a Valet up there. Zico and Change My Mind going to be able to take it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they just played it really, really well. They were looking very safe the entire time. Like you guys mentioned, Valet always had his Trinket and that life swap. Fried Kitty, when he's not the target, he's going to be running that Frostbolt damage build with the Tunnel of Ice, with the Flash Freeze, and then, of course, he's going to be dishing out a lot of damage, and he's also going to act as that goalkeeper. It's his job to secure the Polymorph that forced Drainer's Trinket earlier on. Then he gets another Polymorph, and this, what Minpoike does here as well, is very, very nice. He knows that Valet has just activated his Vampiric Embrace. He's topped himself up. He looks good. Then he's going to go in, push for that CC chain, and even if he doesn't get it, he forces Drainer to line of sight him, move in, and tank that Psychic Scream. Then Minpoike, of course, is going to land 2 Cyclones to reset the DR for that Polymorph bash in the Fried Kitty with the perfect timed Polymorph there at the end. They managed to secure that, and because the crowd control chain is so long, I believe Valet even has a silence. Yeah, there it is, a silence as well. So they had a lot of more crowd control even to work with there. Just an expertly played scenario there towards the end. And most of it is made because of Fried Kitty setting up the pressure by landing the Polymorph, and then Minpoike realizing that situation, pushing in and following that up. So great effort.